See anything? You're it.
All right, perfect. Well, hey, so today we're going to talk about high net worth individuals in the combination of the real estate market and those high net worth individuals. So, Frank, let's talk a little bit about that. What exactly is a high net worth individual?
Well, Mark, I am so glad you asked. Was looking at some National Association of Realtors slide that they had out on Kippinger also had this, and I was shocked that the top 1% is 10 million plus, right? So pretty figure that that you're getting close to that, right? We're almost there. The top 2%, 2.5 million, top 5%, over 1 million, top 10. This is where I'm really shocked. Top 10, 800,000 and above net worth, right? Top 50%, all you need to have is 500,000 or more. And the crazy thing that I saw from this market, I don't know if you're catching it as you're looking at the slide, but 2/3 of that net worth is coming from the equity in properties that these folks own.
So essentially what that means is literally it's not necessarily liquid money as in their bank account, but we're talking about 2/3 of that net worth ability is actually in the equity they have in the home, meaning that the liquidity ability to be able to pull that money out. Let's just take the top 10%. So if they've got a property that's 500,000 or multiple properties that are $2 million in excess, then 2/3 of their net worth is liquidity money sitting in their home, correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
And that's just crazy to me. And just think over the last 3 years how here in Texas, again, we're global here. We're talking to folks from across the country, but and around the world. But the idea of North Texas, we shot up like a rocket ship over the last 3 years. Some folks saw 30% increase in the last 3 years.
Well, it's really funny you say that because literally looking at the difference between national average and local average, in January to February, the increase was 14% more homes got sold between January versus February. So in February, 14% national average sold more than they did back in January. But locally, we had a 41% increase from February and January. So we're talking about a huge number that the national averages don't actually equate to whenever you're looking at the local market. And so the biggest question I have for you, and this is going to go straight into our next slide, but what attracts someone to the real estate market as an investment strategy, considering they already have a high net worth? So let's talk straight into that and numbers.
All right. Well, you're going to love this. Over the last 81 years, if you wanted to bet on anything being successful or not, bet on real estate. And when I saw this, from 1942, there was like this massive run of 118% from 43 to 47. There was a 118% jump in home values. That is insanity. But it continued, for all the way to 1974 was just a nice steady run. And then they had another spike where there was a 93%. We're talking about 30% increase over the last 3 years. Back in 74, in a 4-year period, they had a 93% increase in equity in their homes. What are you supposed to do with that? Oh, by the way, over the last 81 years, there's only been 7 years that real estate did not improve as far as the equity, the value, the appreciation of the home went up every time except for 7 years. And even those, they weren't that bad. We just experienced, some of them that I lived through, and it turned pretty quick, right? I didn't have to worry about it. And 1 year it broke even. But if you were going to bet on something, is this the bet?
I mean, I can't say I'm a gambling man, but I would say that that's a pretty good investment that you're making there. And I think that's the thing is, let's talk about those two time periods in those days, 90 to 91. What was going on? We had a massive issue nationally with war. That was which war was that? 90 to 91. That was the Oh
The
gosh,
Gulf?
that was that the Gulf War?
I should know. I don't know.
I was gonna say I was 4, so
You
I'm
have
gonna
outside factors that do affect. There's no doubt.
Yeah.
You have outside factors that we have no control over that will affect. But even through other wars, we've been steady Eddie up. It's. I think of this market. Here's the one, and I should have put this slide up. There's been a gal the last 9 years. So 3 of those is from COVID. You'd expect the news to be telling people that it's not a good time to invest in real estate. How many times, Mark, in your career, and you've been doing this for quite a few years now, have you heard this is a bubble, it's going to burst, right? I've been doing this for 29 years. Trust me. This one particular person who has a very high profile, world around her on network news every year is saying how bad the real estate market is to invest in. And every year it's been wrong. The real estate market's gone up year after year. We just keep, proving her wrong. So I guess that was my question to you is, all right, we see this great, boom in our values here right now. If we're just going to be selfish and talk about what happened in Texas, we see this massive rise in equity in the home. The property values are going up. Folks have these dollars available to them. How do they kind of assess, well, what should I do with it? Should I buy an investment property? Should I buy a second home? What would you tell somebody? I'm in that top 50%, right? So, Mark, I want to invest. What do I do?
Well, I mean, we have to assess the situation as an individual. We can't just say as a blanket statement. So it really just depends on where we're at. My situation could be different than yours, could be different than my neighbors, and all that kind of stuff. So every individual, every assessment that we make is on an individual basis. Some of the techniques will be very similar to those, but the reasons for doing an investment or the reasons to invest in long-term, short-term, second home, vacation property, all of those things can be completely different. So we have to assess it every single time differently. And part of that assessment is, okay, hey, let's just take a random person. We're going to say you're 40 years old. You've got 3 kids. You've been living in the same home for the last 10 years. And you've got a steady income of $100,000 every year that you're making. That's, I don't know, 50% of America right now, or more. So let's just say those numbers coming into effect. So you're sitting there going, okay, I've got 10 years in this home. I've got 50% equity in my home, and the house is worth, $400,000. My monthly payment is less than $2,000 a month. And we like where we're at, but, we've now kind of grown out of that because I've got 3 kids. So looking at that situation, I'm doing a complete opposite thing than others, that I'm looking at the data and saying, okay, well, if you love your house, then we can do one of 2 things. We can look at an investment opportunity to go and buy another home to have that one start making you some monthly money. You have another option that says, do you love your house? No. Okay. So what would you change about your home? We start talking about that. And now we're going to buy you a new primary home and rent out the current one because your monthly rent is so much lower, or your monthly mortgage is so much lower than what the rent is we could get you for that home. So now you're actually making money on that home. We then talk about investments in short-term Airbnbs. Well, we know that a lot of the Plano area, they just banned any new short-term rentals. So we're looking at areas that allow for short-term rentals, i.e. if we're going to the lake areas, if we're going over to the beaches and we're going outside of the state and we're connecting you with one of our national partners in, Colorado, Florida, California, Alaska, even wherever you're wanting to go. And, if you like to vacation there, most likely there's somebody else that likes to as well. So we're looking at so many different factors on an individual basis that we have to make sure that we're asking the right questions. So taking that into effect, what are some of those key considerations you would recommend when evaluating a potential real estate investment opportunity, Frank?
Well, number one, I need a guy like you who is out there in the field every day. I'm sitting behind a computer screen, the coach, right? And I'm watching the numbers, I'm watching the trends. But having somebody that is in the trenches, that are out there evaluating properties. Hey, Mark, have you ever seen a house that looks pretty good on the internet, but then when you show up there, it's a little bit different than what you thought you were going to see?
Yeah, I mean, normally whenever we look on the TV and on the computer and look at the pictures and we're evaluating that for clients, we have a better idea because we can kind of pinpoint specific things that we think have been tweaked on pictures. I mean, perfect example. I'm not going to name names, but it rhymes with Schmopen Door. Sorry, did I say that out loud? But I think the biggest thing is, like, whenever we're talking about these situations, I mean, the scariest situation I've ever run into is I actually had to walk into a house and there was someone sleeping on the bed, never heard us. We knocked on the door. I always enter a house saying, "Hey, realtor here," making sure people know that we're coming in. We walked through the house. We were in the house for 15 minutes talking, doing everything. We opened one of the bedroom doors and there's someone sleeping on the bed, shut that door, ran out of the house going, "Whoa, okay. Don't want to be caught in a bad situation." It happens. But whenever we took the pictures online, the house was completely vacant. So it was like, okay, there's something hidden here, and either this is a tenant or something like that. But yeah, I mean, there's a ton of situations that, as realtors, our goal is to shine the best light on the house, no matter what it is, whenever we list a home. And we do that, but sometimes pictures can be deceiving. So you've got to make sure that you have that information ahead of time when you're walking in.
Yeah, so. I cannot stress enough having somebody who's out there day in and day out. And I mean, you're putting tons of deals together. Go ahead, throw the stat out there, Mark. In your career, how many properties total closed, volume, whatever you want to share with the folks international. But it is just impressive.
So April 8, 2016 was my first full day in real estate. And since then, we've closed 328 transactions, over $132 million in volume. And we are just continuing to expand. So right now are averaging right about 45 to 50 transactions a year. Last 2 years, we were at 60 and 70 respectfully. And so just continuing to grow, trying to get to that century mark every year is our goal, is 100 transactions every year between myself and the team. And we're just pushing every chance that we can to make sure we're helping our clients every step of the way.
Well, I know we could have gone so many different directions on this. This is something we're going to continue because I do believe people care. And the idea right now, this week, there have been 2 phone calls from folks outside of Texas who are looking to invest in Texas. Hey, is there a good deal? Now, I look for those every day. I look for the opportunity to invest. So these folks who have a bunch of equity, is it a good idea to pull some of that equity out of their home and buy this other house? Again, I know you said it's individual, but if they got a bunch of equity in the house, should they be looking at having 2 houses?
So again, it has to be individualized. You can't just say it as a blanket statement, because how long have they owned that house?
All right. I got to say this. I'm going to cut you off here. All right. Is there anybody that and I know you know a lot of folks with high net, pro athletes, you got all kinds of folks in your little network. Is there anybody with high net worth that doesn't have real estate in their portfolio?
There's not a single one that I work with that does not have multiple properties that they're currently.
That's all I was trying to get out of you. I love you. You do a great job. I'm sitting, like I said, here in an office, and you're out there in the field. You're touring these properties. What you're doing with your videos, guys, follow Mark. I mean, you will see some spectacular homes. Multi-million dollars. We're not California or Florida. You don't see as many of the $50 million, $100 million homes, here in, the Dallas area, but we got some gorgeous ones that folks from California may think they're a $50 million home, and Mark can get you in for, $4 or $5 million.
I will say, I gotta tell you this. I gotta tell you this funny qualm. So I had a client of mine a couple of years ago that we were looking at houses. His family's from Iowa, Idaho, and then I think the son or his brother, no, his cousin bought in California, and so he bought a house here for $750. Great house, pretty standard here in Plano, $750, and whenever we closed on the house, his mom sent a picture to his mom, and his mom's like, "Oh my gosh, this is amazing. It's so beautiful." They shared it at a family reunion, and the sister of the mom, because the cousin, all that situation, goes, "Oh my gosh, that's $1 million house. That's amazing. He's doing so well." And the mom just goes, "Yep. Even though she knew it was under $1 million because it's in our area, but the cousin had bought something that was a lot smaller for more money in a different state. That all of a sudden he's like, "Yeah, I got this 4,800 square foot home, and here in Texas," and they're like, "Oh my gosh, this is so big, and it had a pool and it had all this stuff. Got it for $750," and the family is all like, "Oh my gosh, that's $1 million property." And it's so true in all these other areas. It's remarkable. I had a client come in that they moved here from San Francisco. They sold a 1,400 square foot home in San Francisco. Frank, I have to ask you, what was the price per square foot you think that thing sold at in 2021?
San Francisco, 800 a square? What? I don't know. Crazy number.
$1,000 a square foot. They sold a $1.4 million 3-bed, 2-bath, 1,400 square foot home for $1.4 million. And they moved here and they bought a house for under $1 million that was 4,798 square feet with a pool on a third of an acre.
Wow.
It's just amazing that you go from a smaller property, now you've got an amazing property, and you paid so much less than what the other one was. I mean, it's remarkable the opportunities you have here in Texas.
Well,
so
my tag
investment game's a no-brainer. So you asked me that question in the beginning, like, does it make sense? Yes, it absolutely makes sense because you're getting so much more for your money here than you are other places. But the question just comes down to, that's where I come back to. It's an individual basis. Are we buying it for you? Are we buying it strictly for an investment? Or do we have a little bit of wiggle room for some different options?
Well, again, you are awesome at what you do. I'm smiling ear to ear. Now that story you told about the mom and the family and the whole bit at 750, if they bought that a few years ago, here's what we're going to wrap this up on. The good news is that property is now well over $1 million. Absolutely. They got all this equity in it. You need to be calling it. They need to be taking you out to a nice dinner somewhere for what you did for them.
They're going to take cash out refi just to take us to dinner so that we can take care of that.
Very cool. Hey, again, follow us. Mark, you want to wrap up, anything other than, at Mark Bradford Group?
No, I mean, honestly, this has been really fun. I love the podcast opportunities that we're putting out there. What we want to do is bring topics to you guys of questions that y'all have that we get on a consistent basis. And so we'll bring that here to our channel that we're going to be pushing out our podcast every week, except for next week. Frank's going on a little vacation. So we'll hit this back up in a couple of weeks.
Elbows with some high net worth people.
There you go. And then you're going to have them investing in the real estate market here in North Texas. So
I can't help myself.
No, I love it. So yeah, what we'll do is we'll keep going. So if anybody has any topics they have questions on or want us to cover, please make sure to leave us a comment, leave us some information, and we'd be happy to follow up with you individually, as well as make sure to cover that topic moving forward. So other than that, that's all I got. What about you, Frank?
Again, love what we're doing here. I'm a coach, real estate. If you've been thinking about a career in real estate, join us. Hey, Mark, I think you're looking to bring some people onto your team too. If they're closers, we were looking for some closers.
We are. We're definitely looking for a lot of people to know what they're doing. We want to bring on the right people to make sure they're taking care of our clients as well as theirs. We're going to help them along the way. We're going to teach them. We're going to give them the knowledge that we have, and then you have the support of myself, my team. our transaction coordinators, our marketing team, and everything like that to make sure that we're getting the agents out there, get the limelight on them, and then also taking care of the clients the best way that we can.
And you get me as a bonus.
And you get Frank. That's right. Can never get rid of Frank. That's right.
Bye, guys. Thank you, Mark. Have a great
right.
rest of your day. God bless.